here, person number 2, person number 3, person number 4, leave this blank for the time being. So that should be great. Each individual person will write down their thoughts on what do you consider between weather and climate, or the relationship between weather and climate is. And is climate changing? Is the weather changing? And what are some of the causes? And what are some of the impacts? So basically, what are the relationships between weather and climate? And it doesn't matter. This is kind of like a free-flowing brainstorm. Think of it as a tornado coming through, just whipping information out of your brain, and you should have found it. It's not a regular set of questions, but impacts, causes, relationships between weather and climate, causes of any kind of change that you might know about, and impacts of any kind of change that you might know about. But individuals will use and this is useful in your class if you want. Individual 1 can use a red marker, individual 2 can use a blue marker, and in this case you have a section where the people are writing down their own thoughts. But if there were the whole page, everybody would be writing this one color marker, so you know that somebody only wrote, one word, too much garbage or something. Okay, so work in groups of 4, and put those thoughts down on the outside, and then after the break, we'll address the middle. Okay? I think we can do that by 10:15.
We're doing that on...
To be finding similarities and differences and coming up with 1 or 2 questions that have been generated by your short discussion. Just 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Here we go.
Immediate conditions.
Similarities and differences.
It's similarities, questions, and questions.
Writing stuff down. So I'm
Yes.
So are we saying that this is, so how do we want to say it? Immediate atmospheric conditions? Sure.
So, maybe
Weather is basically
A couple of similarities that people came up with, a couple of differences, and then a question or 2 that was generated by your thoughtful process and your discussion. Keeping in mind, this is just on the basis of what people kind of know. And I know there's been some Googling going on and things like that, but that's okay, because this is kind of our general knowledge. One of the, I just as a disclaimer, one of the great issues about this topic, which I'm sure will come out, is that there is so much out there. What are you going to believe? Who are you going to believe? And do things change as we are able to collect more and more evidence? And that is critical. It's a critical feature of the next generation science standards, being able to draw conclusions that are consistent with evidence, and then being able to change those conclusions when you collect new, different, better, more complete sets of evidence. And so that's one of the things that's so elusive about the idea of climate change. So let's go around. Just anybody want to volunteer a similarity that 4 of you have? Yeah. Yeah.
We had short-term versus long-term, like being short.
Short-term versus long-term. So some kind of a time frame difference. How many people had that? similarity in your, okay. Another similarity.
Weather's made up of 4 components.
Say that again?
Weather's made up of 4 components. Temperature, pressure, humidity, and wind.
Oh, so weather has 4 components, and then there's a similarity that everybody recognizes. Okay? How about a difference? Any differences in your ideas? Yes.
We just had word choice difference, environmental versus atmospheric.
Say that again?
Environmental versus atmospheric. We couldn't decide if it's both or and or.
As far as climate or weather or both?
For weather.
So is weather an environmental feature, or is it like just in the atmosphere? Oh, okay, so the environment would be, like on ground, dust storms, is that part of weather? Would that be? Or is that part of the
That's just what
atmosphere?
our differences. So.
Yeah, okay. Getting down to some differences. Any other differences? How about questions? What's a question you want to know about? Yeah.
When does it stop becoming a weather pattern and turn into climate? What's that blurred line? And, right, is our trial a climate thing or a weather pattern? Right, but where's long term? Is 3 years, 5, 30?
30 years.
Right, 30 years, that's the.
Oh, yeah, okay, good.
Somebody said. Sorry.
I'm glad I came today, I've been wondering. Claudia,
That goes along with our question that was, what's the relationship between weather and climate? And how does one impact the other?
what's the relationship? How much weather does it take to make a climate?
Yeah.
Right. And then averages and how many people teach anything about climate in your classes? Earth science classes, what else? Biology, okay. Temperature effects, how about specific capacity, the heat capacity of water, chemistry of water, gases, gas laws, pressure, things like that. Is that all aspects of climate? You look at a weather map, it's got low pressure over here and a high pressure down here, and one of these days I'll understand that. Okay, so any other questions? Yeah.
Well, I wanted to look into the idea of how long does it take for a climate change to actually lead to a biome change, where we go from one type of biome to another.
I'll add on that. I was good. Our question is similar. It's more of a philosophical kind of question. What will the climate look like in 10 years, in 100 years, in 1,000 years, in 1,000,000 years? We can all agree that the climate is changing. Okay? We use the term global warming because it's a political term, but we can agree that the climate is changing. So what is the effect of that? We're running this huge test on Earth, and we don't know what the outcome is going to be. So along with your question, what's going to happen? And that's more of a philosophical.
I just want you guys to know that Fred's a storm chaser.
National Weather Service spotter.
So because he is very skillfully led us into our next section, which is impacts, I'll have a classroom 7 thermometers for you, so that you can test the climate in your classroom. Or is it weather? Or is it indoor environment? And how is that? Okay, anyway. All right, so, great. Any other questions that we didn't address or that you would like to pose? All right. So this website, the Environmental Protection Agency, there are all kinds of political feelings about whether or not the Environmental Protection Agency is doing anything or can do anything or has been eviscerated by budgets, and all those political things are beside the point. Why do we have an Environmental Protection Agency, and when did it start? Anybody know? Yeah, oh yeah.
When the Cuyahoga River caught on fire.
Yes.
60, 50.
And were there any other extenuating circumstances with public awareness?
Moon landing.
Hmm?
Moon landing.
Moon landing, how about Silent Spring?
Yeah.
Rachel Carson. Those kinds of environmental awareness and catastrophes or potential catastrophes elicited some thinking about the Environmental Protection Agency creation. And it was, I think, somewhere in this website, it says that Richard Nixon gets all the credit for creating an Environmental Protection Agency. I think somewhere it said that. But is it because it's a government agency, does that make it more trusted or less trusted? Is it a scientific agency, like the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Association, Administration? Is it something that gives us some answers that we can trust? And with a lot of the political things that have been happening over the last, 20 years or so, a lot of people have lost their trust in data that's generated by large agencies. And how are you going to generate climate data, not to mention climate change data, unless you have a huge agency, some kind of global effort? So there's a little bit of a credibility issue here in what data do we trust, what is evidence that's good evidence, that's evidence that is not going to be biased in one direction or another. And all of those things are part of Science and Society, which the Next Generation Science Standards has a section for. So our impact on society, our impact on technology and engineering, on how the world works. So this is a really interesting website that I recommend, and if you go up there with science and technology and come down to climate change, are you surprised that there's a section on climate change in the Environmental Protection Agency's official website? Okay, now, climate change science. Why is the climate changing? Are extreme weather events becoming more frequent? Is it related to climate change? So there are all kinds of articles there. Climate change fundamentals. There's an overview. There's causes. There's things here for the future. Then there's impacts. And what I'd like to take a look at right now, not necessarily what's causing climate change. There's a lot of people that think they know what's causing climate change. And the fact that it is changing is pretty well established. The fact that carbon dioxide levels are going up in the atmosphere is measurable. The fact that the pH of the ocean is changing significantly is measurable. The fact that the temperature of the oceans are changing is measurable. So those are scientific pieces of evidence, right? All right, so let's take a look at the impacts of what those changes might have in store for us. And so if you click on impacts in, right here, this little one right here. There are 9 categories, and I have copies of all 9 of them, but since we are in 2 groups of 4, I thought, well, we'll take a look at agriculture, coasts, ecosystems, energy, forest, human health, transportation, and water resources, because what's the society impact is kind of a blend of everything. If transportation is impacted, that's going to impact society. Human health is impacted, that's going to impact society. So I left out the society in the interest of having an even number, not because it's not as important. So here's what I'd like for you guys to do. Now, I'm not really skilled at the Socratic seminar type thing, but I'm thinking that there's some sort of a jigsaw thing. We could organize it this way. This group of 4 is going to get forests, energy, ecosystems, and coastal areas. They're kind of all biological. This group of 4 is going to get transportation, water resources, human health, and agriculture and food. And what I'd like for you guys to do, so as a set, you guys you have all 8 between you. Take a look at this article. It's a pretty short article. I'm going to give everybody a set of those articles. And then what I'd like for you to do is come back in 5 minutes before we break for
Breakups.
our breakout sessions, come in 5 minutes before that, and find out what have you learned about the impact of climate change, and how could you use a reading session like this, where each group of students has a different topic. Do you put it up on a process grid? Do you have all of the forest people come over here and come up with a summary? How would you use this reading strategy in your classroom so that every person is getting to focus on a specific issue? How do you bring that back and share it with the rest of the group in a meaningful way? So you've got 2 challenges. One is the impact of climate change information, and the other is how do you share that information? Since there's so much information, how do you get that information out into a group of people in an efficient way? Okay? All right, so take about 15 minutes, maybe a little bit less, to read this article, take some notes. You can write on it. You can discuss it with your buddies.